They're going to go like this. They're going to say, look, if you ain't with Zuffa, you ain't getting none of this green over here. You can't even get on the turkey card. I'm telling you, that's next. And shit, why you think Queensberry, my man, he already know what's gonna happen. So he like, shit, I'm trying to sue for $1 billion. Damn. He trying to get his and get the hell up out the game. Cause he know this game is finna get turned upside down because of Zuffa boxing. He know.
Telling you right now, Timothy Bradley be saying some outlandish things sometimes. But my goodness, he couldn't have been more spot on when it comes to the Zuffa boxing, Eddie Hearn and Queensberry topic. I've been talking about Zuffa boxing since before they even launched. The potential of them grabbing fighters, undisputed world fighters, guys who end up becoming undisputed. Once they get these guys, ain't nobody in the sport of boxing gonna have any other choice if you want to become a world champion but fight with Zuffa Promotions. Now, I'm not saying you have to be under the Zuffa banner, but you gotta work with Zuffa Boxing. They're paying out a lot of people a lot of money right now. They're offering fighters more money than they've ever seen in their careers. They got a big deal. They've got huge backing, big bank, big bank. If you didn't know, Zuffa Boxing, Paramount Plus, have about a 4 to 5 fight deal. 3, 4, or 5 fights a year. Zuffa Boxing will be co-promoting, putting on fights on Netflix. Yes, Zuffa Boxing, The Ring, and Turkey Al Sheikh. All these cards that are happening on Netflix. If you ain't fighting for Turkey, you ain't getting the big bag. You ain't fighting on Netflix if you ain't involved. If you ain't fighting for Zuffa, you ain't fighting on Netflix. You ain't gonna be on here unless you're fighting for MVP. MVP was recently putting a lot of Netflix fights on, but we just heard the breaking deal that they just signed an ESPN Plus deal. They're gonna be over there on ESPN, and that doesn't mean that Jake Paul won't be fighting on Netflix ever again. But as of right now, all their fights, the girl fights, Alicia Baumgartner versus Bo, all that's gonna be on ESPN. Timothy Bradley is spot on. He knows what is going down around the business and even drops an absolute gem on us. An absolute, in my opinion, a shocker. Listen to what Timothy Bradley has to say about this.
And Eddie, don't act like your ass and try to sell to freaking TKO. Your ass tried to sell. I know. Oh, I know. Yeah, you tried to sell. And your shit was over $1 billion you was trying to sell for, Eddie Hearns. Oh, I know that. Yeah. Shit.
Eddie Hearn tried to sell Matchroom Boxing to TKO and Dana White. And I'll tell you like this, bro. I would not be surprised. We see Queensberry Promotions out here trying to sue Zuffa Boxing for $1 billion goddamn damages for, oh, you're damaging my company. You're making me lose millions and millions of dollars. You're taking my fighters. Nah, bro. The writing is on the wall. They see what's happening here. Eddie Hearn has just became a manager. Literally just created Matchroom Talent Agency yesterday. And his first signing was who? Tom Aspinall, UFC heavyweight champion of the world, who has been dealing with his own problems when it comes to the relationship with Dana White and the UFC. All of a sudden, Eddie Hearn is getting in the business of UFC? At the end of the day, Eddie Hearn went from crapping on Zuffa Boxing, Dana White, UFC fighter pay, and now is in the business of helping it? And I'll explain to you why. Eddie Hearn says he's coming into the sport to play as the manager role for not only Tom Aspinall, but other UFC fighters. He says when it comes down to negotiations, I understand how the business works. I'm a promoter myself. I understand the ins and outs, how much money we are making, the overall revenue, and how much money is getting dished out to fighters. So I understand what is fair and what isn't fair. So he's representing Tom Aspinall in the thought process of he's gonna be getting more money for his fighters, but at the same time building these UFC fighters to be bigger than what they are. You're helping out the UFC because at the end of the day, Eddie Hearn is gonna have to bend a knee. At some point, you're gonna see Eddie Hearn and Dana White co-promoting. You're gonna see Eddie Hearn involved around Dana White. And I say this because Eddie knows what he's doing, bro. He knows what he's doing. He's getting in to UFC and, around the circle, trying to stay relevant still after being rivals with this dude. I know Eddie Hearn, and people are going to say, whoa, he has the plan on exposing the UFC. When they offer Tom Aspinall a deal, this is what's going to happen. He's going to say, no, they're offering this X amount of money. He's going to come out on Twitter. He's going to release it. Everybody's going to get all trippy. Everybody's going to get all mad. But guess what? None of that matters. You don't understand how the UFC works, bro. You eventually, as a manager, have to bend the knee. That's just how it works. Text messages have been leaked between Dana White, Sean Shelby, and other managers, where managers try to fight for more money for their fighters. But these guys turn it down. Eddie Hearn is not doing anything different but coming into the sport and helping the revenue of the UFC. You build Tom Aspinall, just like you said, just by signing him. Now he's more famous than he ever has. Well, guess what? When Tom Aspinall fights, guess where everybody's gonna go watch it? The UFC. So even if you are gonna be getting more money for your fighters, you're giving them this promotion. You are in the UFC, Eddie Hearn. You part of it now. It's a matter of time before we see him over with Zuffa boxing. A UFC revolution, which I talked about in my last video, saying, is it possible Eddie Hearn comes in here, grabs a bunch of fighters, and, gets all these fighters and is able to do something with them in the point where they force the UFC to give people more money. It don't work like that, bro. It don't matter if you get Tom Aspinall, Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira. If you start asking for a ridiculous amount of money, go fight for another organization. Look at Francis Ngannou. This dude was the UFC heavyweight champion of the world. Wanting more money and wanting more rights. And what happened? See you later. Not even part of the PFL no more. This is a different game that boxing people who don't pay attention to UFC, that don't understand the way it works, that Dana White works, they don't understand that Eddie Hearn is helping the bag now of Dana White. And it's only a matter of time before we see some co-promoting going on, man. Let me know what you guys think, though, bro. This is the MMA Boxing Addict channel. Dropping some heat on you guys.